Deep in the mountains of Japan, hidden by dense forests and shrouded in mist, there was a village called Shimizu. It wasn't on any modern maps, and the only way to reach it was by an old, crumbling road that wound through the trees. The locals in nearby towns rarely spoke of it, but when they did, it was always in hushed tones. Shimizu wasn't just forgotten, it was avoided. The rumors were always the same. People who visited Shimizu never came back again. Over the decades, hikers, journalists, and even police officers had vanished there without a trace. For years, the stories remained nothing more than local folklore. But in 2019, a group of university students decided to investigate. Ayumi, Daichi, Kenta, and Rina were studying urban legends for a class project. They had read about Shimizu in an old journal from the 1970s and decided to see if the stories were true. "Come on," Daichi had said, grinning. "It's probably just an abandoned village. We'll take some pictures, write about the legends, and ace the project." Despite her unease, Ayumi agreed to join them. They packed their gear and drove out early one morning, the rising sun painting the mountains in shades of gold. The road to Shimizu was as treacherous as the stories described, narrow, overgrown, and eerily quiet. The farther they drove, the thicker the trees became, their branches twisting together like clawed hands. When they finally reached the village, it was already afternoon. Shimizu looked frozen in time. Wooden houses with thatched roofs leaned at odd angles, their walls blackened by time and weather. A single torii gate stood at the entrance, its wood splintered and covered in moss. "This place is creepy," Rina muttered, hugging herself, as they wandered through the village. An unsettling silence surrounded them. There were no birds, no insects, just the sound of their own footsteps crunching on the gravel. They found no signs of life. Plates of food sat untouched on tables, now rotted and moldy. Shoes were left by doorways, and tools lay scattered, as if the villagers had simply walked away. In one house, Ayumi found a diary. The last entry read, "The shadows are coming. We can hear them calling our names. We must leave, but it's too late." "What do you think that means?" she asked, showing it to the others. "Maybe they were scared of something," Kenta suggested, though he sounded uncertain. As the sun dipped below the mountains, the mist began to thicken, curling around the village like a living thing. "We should leave," Rina said, her voice trembling. "Not yet," Daichi replied. "We still need more footage." But then they heard it, a low, mournful sound, like the wind, but layered with something else. A voice. "Did you hear that?" Ayumi whispered. The sound grew louder, echoing through the empty streets. It wasn't just one voice. It was many, overlapping, whispering through the names. They started running back to the car, but the mist grew denser, obscuring their path. The village seemed to shift around them, the houses looming closer, their windows like dark, hollow eyes. Rina screamed. When they turned, she was gone. "Rina!" Ayumi shouted, her voice breaking. But there was no response, only the whispers. The remaining three pressed on, desperation driving them, but then Kenta stumbled, falling to the ground. Ayumi turned to help him, but he was already being pulled into the mist, his terrified face disappearing into the white void. Daiichi grabbed Ayumi's hand and they ran. The whispers grew louder, now sounding like screams. They reached the torii gate, but just as they crossed through, Daiichi froze. "What are you doing?" Ayumi cried, pulling at him. I hear them," he said, his eyes unfocused. "They're calling me." And before Ayumi could stop him, he turned and walked back into the mist. Ayumi didn't stop running until she reached the car. She sped down the mountain road, tears streaming down her face. When she told the police, they dismissed her story as hysteria. Search parties were sent, but no trace of her friends or the village was ever found. The road to Shimizu no longer existed, as if the village had vanished entirely. To this day, Ayumi refuses to speak of what happened. But sometimes, late at night, she hears whispers outside her window, calling her name.